literally just finished this book and I thought I would come on and review it for you because I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads and I read it pretty quickly, and that is The Memory Book by Rowan Coleman. So I picked this up in Waterstones the other day, and like I said, I really flew through this book. I will read you what the back says and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the story itself because it doesn't give away too much on the back. Okay. The name of your firstborn, the face of your lover. What would happen if your memory of these began to fade? Is it possible to rebuild your life, raise a family, fall in love again? When Claire begins to write her memory book, she already knows that this scrapbook of memories will soon be all her daughters and husband have left of her. But how can she hold on to the past when her future is slipping through her fingers? So, straight from the start we know that the main protagonist, Claire, is losing her memory. We don't know why. We have a few sort of assumptions, but even in like the first chapter they don't tell you what's specifically wrong with her. Now, I could tell what was wrong with her straight away, and was the reason I picked this book up from reading like the first couple of pages, because I knew what it was going to be about. And Claire has early onset Alzheimer's disease, which is a form of dementia, and this type of early Alzheimer's, it was the gene was passed down from her father, so he also passed away from it. And because I work primarily in a lot of care homes and with a lot of elderly people, we see so much dementia, like from the whole spectrum of it. And I think I'd love to do a video like just on dementia maybe one day and like just have a discussion about it. But anyway, I'm getting slightly off topic. So I see it pretty much on a day-to-day basis, from the first signs of people just starting to be sort of diagnosed with it, from the other end of the spectrum where they've really forgotten everything and have either resorted back to childhood or have sort of lost the use of all their limbs and really can't remember anything. So for me, I instantly knew that she was suffering from some sort of dementia, and that's what drew me into the book, because obviously I work with it and I wanted to get this perspective of someone who's actually suffering from it, because obviously I only see the perspective like as an outlooker's point of view onto it, and we obviously hear from like carers and nurses, and then we get the side of the family and the husbands and wives that have to deal with their partners or family members having the dementia. So we never actually, although obviously we get some people who realise they have dementia, it's not that far along, and sort of sometimes they try to cover it up, things like that. Like, you never really, because I've never personally in my family, touch wood, had someone who suffered with dementia. I don't know personally what it's like for someone with it. I've never heard their story, so that is where this book really intrigued me. And obviously the family, Claire's family, start off this memory book so they can start writing all these different things down that have happened throughout their lifetime, that they can all look back on when she is quite far down with her dementia, and even one day when she passes away. So throughout this book there are little anecdotes, which I can only assume are sort of anecdotes that are written in the memory book, and they are told from all the different members of the family. So for instance, her mum will write in when Claire was born, Claire's written in when her daughter Caitlin was born, and when she first met her partner Greg, and Greg also writes in it as well about how he's some of the memories he has, and how you also find out obviously how he's sort of dealing with it. So a great chunk of this book is actually told from the perspective of her daughter Caitlin. Caitlin's obviously, she's sort of around my age, she's like 18. She's just failed her exams and has been chucked off her course at uni, and there's other things which I won't spoil too much, but she's obviously having to deal with all that and the fact that her mum has dementia. And for me, it was just because she is obviously the same age as me, it was interesting to see how she was having to cope with it and how it was affecting her, and how she feels the responsibility that she's going to have to look after her younger sister, and she doesn't know what she's going to do when her mum's gone. And there's a whole sort of other storyline with Caitlin, but I will leave that to the book, because just so you have some aspect of mystery to go into it with. So this book also highlights how people who have never come in contact with dementia before, or just don't really have the understanding of it, can be so just either mean or just really sort of disrespectful about it, and they just don't know how to deal with someone with it. And that is obviously something, like I said, I'd love to do a video on it. I have done a dementia aware course as part of my apprenticeship, and so I feel I'm very aware of it. But when they were at Caitlin's uni, when the receptionist found out that her mother had dementia, she just stopped talking to her as if she wouldn't understand anything, like stopped talking to her mother as if Claire was unable to understand or unable to speak to her, and just completely ignored her and sort of just disregarded everything she was saying, and was like, look, just take your mum home because she shouldn't really be here. And it's really heartbreaking that people react like that, like just because they've lost some of their memory, that person's still in there, and depending on what stage along they still have, like, at some stage, the capacity to understand what you're saying, and different things can trigger them off. So in this book you really see the good days and bad days that Claire has, from her good days of literally remembering everything, and being herself aware that she's got the dementia, and know that she's having to sort of face these mental barriers that are stopping her from remembering things, such as like her daughter's name, or just how to get home from a coffee shop, things like that. And then also you see her really bad days, like she was cooking with her younger daughter and she left the cooker on, so the house filled up with gas. She forgets to turn off the bath, and instead of running both taps she runs just the boiling hot tap, and she ends up slowly but then also quickly forgetting who Greg is, and thinking that all he wants to be with her is for her money, and that he's an intruder and she just wants him out of the house. So for him that must be like heartbreaking. And like I said, we see so many other halves that have to watch their partners deteriorate and slowly not know who they are and have that relationship break down. There was one moment in this book for me that reminded me quite of there is a Louis Theroux episode, pretty sure you can find it on Netflix, where he researches about dementia and Alzheimer's. He goes into a care home, and a wife is visiting her husband who lives in this residential place, and he doesn't really remember who she is. He just thinks she's a friend that's come to visit, and he himself has fallen in love with someone else on the floor, like on the floor of the ward, and she has to watch him and this other woman hold hands and be in this little relationship. There's a bit in this that reminded me of that, when Claire ends up in this coffee shop and she ends up meeting this guy called Ryan, and slowly throughout this book he sort of pops up every now and again. He sort of turns up in the unexpected places, and she slowly but surely, she knows she has a family and a husband, and he has a wife, and they just somehow have this connection, and they start to sort of fall in love. And I sort of really want to tell you what happens at the end, but there is a really great heartwarming moment in this book. If you want to read this book or really interested in it, maybe like skip ahead 20 seconds, because I'm just gonna partly spoil it, but yeah, just skip ahead to a little bit later. So yeah, at the end we do find out that this guy Ryan, every time she sees him, it's outside the house, and right in like the last couple of pages at the end we find out that Ryan is actually her husband Greg, and he has just been turning up at these different places, and she has sort of fallen in love with him again, and she can't really distinguish in her mind that it's the same person, but to him he's just really thankful that she can still see him and love him in some aspect, and that sort of gives him hope that they will be able to sort of build some sort of their relationship back together, even if it is in a sort of mismatched way. Yeah, I hope you've skipped forwarded enough if you plan to read this book. But yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this. It was really interesting to read something on dementia from a person suffering with its point of view. Even if this is fictional, it's obviously got inspiration and true life stories from actual people suffering from it. And even though it's on a very serious topic, and at times you've empathised and felt sorry for the characters, it still was a light-hearted book in the way. It didn't feel like, not light-hearted as in funny, but just as in you didn't feel like you were reading the most depressing book ever. It was really well written and very gracefully put on the subject, and I really enjoyed it. So I hope you liked this review of this book. I really recommend you check it out, and yeah, if you've read it or plan to read it, let me know what you think about it. And I might right now actually just record a book on dementia just while I'm here recording. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys!